Hello, in this video we will discuss about the emetic reflex or vomiting. It is also known as the emesis. This is basically due to some reason we will discuss in this way. So the first of all we should learn about the stimulus which that is stimulate the emetic reflex, and in this way here is the vomiting, and we will discuss about this is basically the anti-peristaltic movement of the gastrointestinal tract. Simply we can say that, but behind their function and their physiology we will discuss here also. So the spoily food, chemicals and smell which that is responsible for the big stimulus for emitting emetic reflex. So here is the person which that contain brain, and brain is contain a cerebrum, is also known as the higher brain center, and the inner here is you can see the medulla oblongata, which that is vomiting center. It is inside of the medulla oblongata is the nucleus type structure, is known as the vomiting center, and this vomiting center is contained there are many receptors we will discuss also. So in this way here is the emotional factors. This emotional factor which that is lead to increase the higher brain cortex sensitivity due to the sympathetic nervous system, and in this way which lead to trigger the vomiting through a medulla oblongata stimulation. On the other hand, the pain and repulsive smell and repulsive sight, for example the bad things, a gut or some blood, so that is required for the vomiting, this stimulus, and this is known as the stimulus, and it can be internal or external. For example, the external is smell, while the internal is also, which that is different we will discuss later in this video. So here is the blue color showing that the vomiting center, and in this way the vomiting center and vestibular nuclei and the chemoreceptor trigger zone are present here. So there are many nuclei are present for we can say that, and here is the vomiting center which contain a muscarinic receptor. This muscarinic receptor is used for the vomiting reflex, and this is the vomiting center. So it means the muscarinic receptor is receive the signal through our nerves. So in this way the nerve will stimulate the vomiting center to create the vomiting reflex. So in this way here is you can see that is the chemoreceptor trigger zone is also present. It is known as the CTZ for simple, and this located outside blood brain barrier. It means the blood contain many toxins, but it will be not lead to vomiting because the blood brain barrier, and brain cannot sense the carbon dioxide as well as the other things or nitrogen for example. So that is why the blood contain many things which can be also spoil, but which can be also create the vomiting but not vomiting. Why? Because the blood brain barrier. So here is the dopamine 2 receptor and serotonin receptor, 5-HT serotonin receptor. This 5-HT receptor is also present for receiving the serotonin and dopamine here too, and this will be stimulate chemoreceptor trigger zone will stimulate after the getting the information from the higher brain cortex to from a cytotoxic agent or something, which that will lead to stimulation of the vomiting center to vomiting reflex. And here is you can see that is the ear anatomy, so outer ear, middle ear and inner ear. So the labyrinth is are present is bony structure, as well as the contain a vestibule. This vestibule is responsible for the motion and balance in the air, so in the space. While here is the motion sickness disease, motion sickness problem during the some reason, if you are sitting in the car or bus, so can feel this by imbalance. So in this way, this motion sickness is through basically stimulate the vestibular nuclei are present in the medulla oblongata, and in this way the medulla contain a vestibular nuclei here, and you can see, and these contain a muscarinic receptor too, and the histamine 1 receptor also. So the muscarinic receptor and histamine 1 receptor. This muscarinic receptor and histamine receptor is triggered by the nerves, and this muscarinic receptor will trigger by the nerves and histamine release to trigger the vomiting center. So first chemoreceptor trigger zone will be stimulated. So here you can see this is the basically trigger the vestibular nuclei to the chemoreceptor trigger zone, and in this way that CTZ will stimulate the vomiting center to vomiting reflex. So in this way the reflex will be occur and vomiting will be occur. So here is the digestive tract. In this way the anti-peristaltic movement will be occur. How it's possible? Let's begin to understand. Here is a food, and it is going to anti-peristaltic anti-movement of the food. For example, stomach contain food here, and it can be spoily or some toxins. So here is the gastric pit. It also contains the lumen here, and here is also contain enterochromaffin cells. On the other hand, the parietal and chief cells we will not understand. But here is the when cytotoxic agent will contact with the enterochromaffin cell, and then enterochromaffin cell will stimulate the serotonin 5-HT3 receptor are present in the nerves when bind to give a nerve impulse through a vagus nerves. This is the sensory nerves of the chemotoxin. And in this way, after the sensation, the impulse will move toward the vomiting reflex, toward the vomiting center. So when go into the vomiting center, muscarinic receptor will bind with this neurotransmitter to trigger the vomiting center, and ultimately the vomiting reflex will be occur. And in this way, the peristaltic movement will be occur. Peristaltic movement means the anti-peristaltic movement means that is against the gravity, and the circular muscle contract behind the food, and the circular muscle contract relax upper part of the food, while the vice versa in this peristaltic movement. So here is a higher brain cortex. After the sensation of emotional factors, pain, repulsive smell, repulsive sight, in this way it will be trigger the vomiting center to vomiting reflex. So I hope you make sense about these things here. So here is the go into the vomiting center, and after the vomiting center to trigger the vomiting reflex by a motor nerves. Why motor nerves? Because the motor nerves control the muscle movement of the digestive system. So it is the afferent nerves, while the efferent nerve is the motor. So here is the first of all, let's begin to understand the contraction of the digestive tract. So here is the diaphragm. This diaphragm will be contraction of the diaphragm during the vomiting time, and before the vomiting, and abdominal muscle will be contract also. After the contraction of the diaphragm and abdominal muscle will lead to contract also the heart, stomach, and also the increase the heart beat due to the sympathetic nervous system. We will discuss later in this video. So in this way, here is the stomach. The stomach is contained basically pyloric sphincter and cardiac sphincter. So the pyloric sphincter when open, so the food are present in the duodenum will move upward into the stomach again and backward, and this backward movement to upward and continuously the contraction and relaxation of the anti-peristaltic movement will open the cardiac sphincter and go upward, and in this way the vomiting will be occur, and it is known as the anti-peristaltic movement. And this is the circular muscle contraction behind the food and move up against the gravity and expelling of the food outside in the environment from the oral cavity. So this is very strong contraction and strong sympathetic nervous system. We will discuss the nervous system, what is that. So first of all, I want to say that important thing is that the parasympathetic nervous system will lead to inhibit the emetic reflex. Why? Because the parasympathetic nervous system is responsible for the digest and rest, while the sympathetic nervous system, which that is fight and flight response, it means the inhibition of the digestion, while the promotion of the sugar level increase, as well as other activity will be increased, the ATP increase, so the digestive system digestion of the food will be inhibited. So here is, you can see that is the medulla oblongata as well as the spinal cord. The spinal cord is basically responsible for the emitting reflex. Here we will discuss. In this way, here is, you can see the digestive tract. This digestive tract is contain basically triggers, and example the aphylococcal enterotoxin, for example. So this is the triggers, and in this way, after the triggering, in this way you can see the gastrointestinal tract, which that is lead to duodenum, to spinal cord, and after this go into the spinal cord. In this way, the dorsal horn of the spinal cord will lead to move upward into the medulla, which that is ultimately move into the emetic center. But important thing is that before going to the emitting center, it will be moved toward the higher brain cortex, and that will be again move into the emetic center for reflux, for the emetic reflex. So this is the spinal cord and gastrointestinal tract. I hope you are getting the concept. So here is the basically is the sympathetic afferents, and this sympathetic afferents a nerve which that is moved toward the higher brain cortex. In this way, the go into the higher brain cortex, and in this way, the sympathetic afferent, which that is sympathetic afferent, will move toward the higher brain cortex for detection something. For example, I want to say that is the here is the chemoreceptor trigger zone, CTSZ, which that is receptor for a dopamine D2 and serotonin 5-HT3 serotonin. This is the serotonergic neuron, a dopaminergic neuron. So in this way, here's the drugs, chemical dopamine agonists, cancer, chemotherapy, apomorphine, and digoxin, which that is go into the higher brain cortex. After the integration into the higher brain cortex, will move into the efferent nerves toward the emitting center, and after the emitting center to move in the neuromuscular junction in the smooth muscle, and in this way the smooth muscle will efferent motor nerves will be triggered to contraction of the gastrointestinal tract to expel food which that is spoily or basically something. So thanks for watching.